All right, now that you've gotten some of your work out of your head, you float onto paper and it's like super fun and you're having a blast. Let's get into shape design. Woohoo! This is the first way that you can communicate the story with your character design. And what I mean by that is that you can show your audience this character on a page and instantly their brains connect to the shapes that these characters are made of and start making synapses in their brain fire off and be like, okay, so what do I connect this to? What have I seen that's like this before? Those are called connotations. And so, what are the connotations of the shapes that you're using? These are some very basic shapes, a star and a square, and they are iconic characters. Can you guess which ones? The colors kind of give it away, but it's SpongeBob and Patrick. Pat yourself on the back if you got that one. Good job. Just wanted to remind you how simple these shapes can be to really read as iconic characters. And another example of really basic shapes being used in a strong way is Mr. Tiger Goes Wild. This is a book by Peter Brown. And in this book, the entire story starts out as very gray and stark, and the shapes are very strong and straight edged. And that creates this juxtaposition between the end of the book where Mr. Tiger goes wild. He breaks out of the cityscape and he goes to the jungle, and his shapes become a lot more organic. And with that, it just creates a contrast in the story. It tells the story through the shapes. You could probably have no words in the book and still understand what's happening because of those shapes and the colors and all the things that contribute to that storytelling process. Bear Scare is another book that I absolutely love by Jacob Grant. This is the cover, and this is a very striking cover, not only because the character's just looking out at you, but also because of these basic shapes that are used inside the silhouette. So we've got square, circle, triangle, the basic building blocks of our shape world. They're like the primary colors, but for shapes. And these basic shapes, the more simplified they are, the more striking they are. You understand immediately because our primal brain is just like, it breaks it into those shapes. So those being combined creates a very striking image. And once again, John Klassen has hit us with a brilliant series called Circle, Square, and Triangle. These are great stories, but also great character designs because, I mean, look at these guys. And here's an opportunity to talk about what kind of connotations are usually put with these shapes. And this is not an all or nothing thing, like it's always this. It is, I mean, all kinds of shapes can bring things to mind, but usually circles are associated with being friendly and welcoming, squares are dependable and sturdy, and triangles are cunning and sharp. So now that we know that, we can look at this character lineup that is from Aladdin. And on the bottom, we can see the most simplified shape language that they used for these characters, which is great. I don't think it's a coincidence that the two roundest characters, the Sultan and the Genie, have the main villain in between them, because their fluffy roundness is a perfect juxtaposition to Jafar's angles. He's basically just two overlapped triangles. And with that angularity, he's called out from the rest of the squad and is also shown to be the sharpest. Like something in our brains tells us sharp, stay away, bad. So using it for a villain is kind of a perfect use of that shape language. Another way to use shape language is shown in Inside Out. These are basic shapes that don't necessarily correspond exactly with the design of the character, but design of the personality of the character. So Joy isn't literally this like starburst pattern, but she is shown through it. Like she exists as a starburst. Like she is that in spirit. And so they really captured the personality with these shapes rather than just the shapes themselves, even though anger is very literal. He is a red square. But one of the coolest things about this is in the movie, there is a moment where some of the characters are abstracted back to their most basic shapes. So these shapes actually make it to the final cut of the film, which is kind of a rarity to see in the character design lifestyle, seeing your design building blocks being shown. It's pretty cool. Another great example is from The Rise of the Guardians, which this movie has a fantastic art book if you ever want to see it. They created an entire like language of pattern associated with these characters. There are a lot of main characters in this movie, and they all want to feel important because they all represent different holidays, and you don't want to be like, oh, this holiday doesn't matter. But they all need to feel strong. And one of the ways they did that is giving them all very definitive shapes to be associated with. Some of my favorites are Santa, of course, being this really big solid square. His design is very square, but also his character is so dependable and also very strong without being overly aggressive. So I feel like he embodies square perfectly. Same with Sandman and Circle. He is easily the most friendly. He doesn't even speak throughout the entire film, but he is so like welcoming and jovial. Love him. And then we have our main villain here at the middle bottom, and he could have basically like a coffin shape, which makes sense because he embodies fear in the human race. Basically, no big deal, just the sum of all fears. And so him being associated with death would kind of make sense. But then instead of just making it a straight up coffin, they also have these jagged edges that come in and out and like break up that silhouette. And in doing that, they create not just a shape that is scary. It's like if that kind of shape was shown in a lineup with the other shapes that represent the characters, there is no way that is a good character. That is an evil dude. There's no way you would mistake that for some kind of, oh, that's the Easter Bunny shape. So I want you just to keep that in mind that not only can it be a shape language for the character itself, it could be the shape that represents their personality, and it could be a shape that represents design language around the characters. There's so many options for shape. It's wonderful. Another way to use shape is not just basic shapes. So we're not just in circle, square, triangle territory anymore. We're in owl territory. Better watch out. Anyways, so they're owls that basically decide the shapes of this character. She is completely owl-like in every sense of the words. I mean, like, I think the character designers took every opportunity to make her an owl. So she's got the really round eyes. She's got the little eyebrow things. I don't even know what those are called. She's got talon hand things. There are even feathers on her sleeve. There are just so many things that call out to owl. And what that does is it gives us something to refer to, as in everything you think about owls now is also thought about her. So if you find that there's something about your character that calls to you from like, you want owls to be associated with them, or you think of roses because it's Beauty and the Beast, or you think of a certain type of plant, animal, food, music, whatever, just roll with it. Like, take that for what it is and imbue that into your designs, because there's no reason not to. And I just want to kind of open up your mind to the possibilities there, that it doesn't have to just be shape as in the basic shapes. It can be shape of anything. Shape of Water. That's a movie. That's not what we're talking about. Okay, so I'm going to bring it back to the Paranorman sketches by Heidi Smith. These guys, remember that we are thinking very sketchy, very loose. We're thinking in big shapes and pushing them to their limits. So we don't have to think in realistic terms. Oh no, this doesn't look like a human body anymore. We just have to think in shape. So this guy is basically just like a teardrop shape. This guy has this very triangular torso, and then he's got the trapezius that goes up to a diamond, basically, and his face is a total rectangle. And these things, I mean, they are the most basic of basic, but they're built into a human figure. You wouldn't mistake this for like, oh, I'm looking at a triangle. You're just thinking, wow, that guy is really buff because he's like got these ridiculously hulking shoulders. So I want you to think about that going forward. Keep it loosey-goosey. And I'm just going to draw over some of these shapes so that we can kind of get an idea of how to put characters into shapes.